Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. It is Business Connections Live. It's great to have your company. And here we are. We're live on another Monday. And we've got a fantastic program lined up for you today. It's a real interesting one. It's very topical as well, for that matter. It's around the well-being of your staff, what you should be thinking about, and how maybe COVID-19 is going to be affecting your business. Got a fantastic guest with us today, live from her cabin at the bottom of the garden. The dog may well be barking in the back garden, but my guest today is Lou Banks. Lou, it's great to have you with us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for setting expectations around the dog. He's in the house now, but it is still a high risk. So I appreciate you putting that out there straight away.
Well, you never know, do you? You never know. That's the thing about it. I mean, we do live in interesting times at the moment. For those people that don't know who you are, I mean, you're the CEO and you're also the founder of Rising Vibe Limited. What do they do, and what's your business all about in normal times?
Okay, so in normal times, I'm glad you said that actually. In normal times, we're culture consultants. So we help our clients to define or refine the culture that they want. And what that means in Rising Vibe is, how do you expect and want your people to show up at work? How do you want them to behave? How do you want them to be? And how do you hold everybody to account around that? So what's accepted, what's expected and what's accepted in your business around culture? We help people define or refine that. We have a diagnostic where we help to establish where people are currently starting from in context of where they want to be. And then we design learning and development solutions to move from A to B in simple terms. And what we do is use emotion to support that, because we rarely use emotion and business in the same sentence, although right now I don't think that is so much the case, because how we're feeling will impact whether or not we engage, whether or not we learn, whether or not we're prepared to change. So we are very overt with emotion in the work that we do around culture in normal times.
Who's your typical client then? Who are the people that you tend to go out and you work with? Is it the health industries? Is it individual corporate clients? Who is it you tend to work with?
So we work with big corporates and we work with SMEs. We don't work industry specific. When I set up the business, actually, I did toy with that. But the work that we do, which we're going to talk about in terms of, emotions, feelings, social pain, is present and relevant to all industries. So we work with the human. So we work with different types, size-wise business, but we don't work in any particular industry at all.
All right, now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. COVID-19, of course, is hitting industry right across the UK at the moment. It's causing all sorts of issues and problems. And I suppose for many organisations, that emotional level within business is normally not accepted. Yes, we're all mates. We all go down the pub. We have a drink. We do all those kind of things. But for a lot of organisations, it's low on their priority list, this emotional resilience that organisations, kind of latently have. So where are we today, do you think? And how do you think COVID-19 is affecting that? Are we changing our perspective, do you feel?
Well, so where do I start with this one? What we know to be true in normal times is that what we call high vibe emotions, positivity, motivation, passion, drive, they are always encouraged in business. And of course, so they should be. But the low vibe emotions that we talk about in Rising Vibe, from boredom, indifference, irritation, through to shame, despair and depression, are not encouraged to be talked about, are not invited into conversations. Anger, resentment, blame, it goes on all the time in business, but it's rarely labelled as an acceptable conversation to have. Now, in these times, I don't think there's anybody in high vibe emotions. There's some people that I'm speaking to and working with that are in a state at times of hope, optimism and calm. because they're focusing on different things. But right now, the low vibe emotions are rife. Of course they are, because of the uncertainty and lack of safety. So what we are seeing already, just in this last week, actually, as people are now settling into, I guess, working from home, that kind of thing, is that some leaders, and not only just leaders, but mainly people that are leading, who haven't engaged in any emotional conversations or well-being kind of work before, are being forced to. They are having to, and they are probably not equipped to do that if it's not been on the radar of the organisation before. So in one way, it's helpful that these kind of conversations will now have to happen, because, you know, the mental health and well-being of your staff is going to be huge. But if there is a lack of confidence to do this kind of thing, which is what we experience all the time, it could actually add to the pain that people are feeling.
So do you think there's something, I mean, is there something we can do? Everybody is working remotely at the moment, or at least those people that can are working remotely. What can employers do for their staff? Is it a case of communicating with them? Because a lot of companies are very bad at communicating with their teams anyway, be they remote or even in the office. Is it a case of getting out there and talking to them a bit more, reassuring them? Is that the responsibility that business owners should have on their shoulders now?
Yeah, I guess reassurance would be great if we had something to reassure people with, right? Which I think right now, that doesn't feel possible for many people. So I know, just us in our own business, you know, we're a small enterprise. We've had to make some big changes in the last 2 weeks, redundancies, dropping in hours, that kind of thing, which has been so extremely painful. And we do this for a living. And, you know, as a leader, I've been second guessing myself in terms of, am I doing this in the most helpful way right now, based on everything that I know, because this situation is so extreme and so different. So right now, I think there are two key things we can do, one internal and one external. So the internal thing, which when you are feeling afraid, which most people are right now, is more challenging. And if you don't have a way of working and showing up that is around self-reflection, self-awareness, it's going to be even more challenging. But let's go perfect world for a minute. If we could all take responsibility for how we are responding to this situation, rather than blaming others and feeling resentful and angry, which is a normal process. It's a normal part of the process, by the way. But what I'm noticing is a lot of blame, and people will be absolutely getting it wrong right now. This is so extreme. It is so unprecedented. No one knows how to operate in these times. Blaming other people for getting it wrong is not going to help anybody. For me, it's about really helping people to take responsibility and accountability for how they're feeling without blame is going to really help. So I know I've had some very extreme reactions to some of the conversations I've had to have in the last 2 weeks, and that's got nothing to do with anybody else. It's all to do with me feeling shame and guilt and pain that I'm having to do some of this and suffer the team. And that can mean that I behave and show up in a way that's not particularly helpful. And I'm sure I have, by the way. But because I'm aware of it, that's helped.
But does it help the people that you're actually telling the bad news to? Because I know you've made some very difficult decisions, but does it help them? You know, is that enough, you know, help for them as they walk out the door and support? Or is it to a certain extent what we're doing is we're telling them the bad news, we understand the pain they're going through, but we've just got to move on through this?
Yeah, so if we can, first of all, just accept that we are responsible for the way we react to something, that's going to help. The second part is we just need to keep checking in with people. And I was having a call this morning with some of the team, and what's happened right now is the work that we do, which is all around connection and minimizing social pain, all of a sudden is second to, if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right now some people are genuinely in survival, thinking about how am I going to earn enough money to live, to eat, to look after my family. So by checking in regularly, which I am doing, by the way, because it's important to me, because I care about these people, going forwards, when this starts to ease off and we get into, what people are calling the new normal, I'm hoping that checking in and being there and keep showing up for people, being available, being accessible, will help in the long term. But right now, if you are in a place of not earning any money, not knowing when you're going to earn any money, and other people in your household are not earning any money, all you're thinking about right now is how are you going to eat? And me checking in might actually feel irritating rather than a support. Whereas in normal times, that checking in and being there for somebody is probably much more appreciated in the present moment than it will be right now. But that would be my advice. And that's what I'm trying to do, is stay in touch and also be honest about how I'm feeling as well. Because, everybody's in this together. And for me, that sense of everyone being in it together is really helping. It's helping me anyway.
I suppose, we're going to get a reaction as well, aren't we? Where, well, she's all right then, isn't she? You're going to get that.
Totally.
And we were talking about this before we started the programme. People are out there and there's always a complaint that they're not being told enough. They feel they're not getting the information. And of course, the trouble is the next tier up and the tier above that of management or leadership, they're probably going through exactly the same issues because they don't know what to do. And that is the problems that they've got. Listen, we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more because I want to talk about how we can be role models to our employees, how we can, through leadership, and also how we can recognise that social pain as well in our business, even remotely while we're in this situation. So I'll let you have a moment's breather, check on the dog, and then check on the dog, and then we'll come back and we'll have a bit more of a chat. Okay.
Great.
Lou Banks is my guest on today's edition of Business Connections Live. It's great to have your company. We are live today. We've decamped from our proper studio. We're in another studio at the moment, and I hope you're enjoying the program. By the way, if you have a comment that you'd like to, or a question perhaps for Lou, then you can go on to either our LinkedIn feed for this particular program, or you can go on to YouTube as well, if you wish, or even on Facebook, and you can leave a message for Lou while we're doing the program today. Okay, let's go back a couple of weeks. We had Brian Main. He was on the program, and this will be good for for you to do while you've got maybe this break from the office environment. It's goal setting. What are going to be your goals in the future? What are the things that you want to achieve? If you set goals and you achieve those goals and you write them down, they're not just wishes, they do become tangible things that you can move forward with. Brian's program was a real insight into goal setting. And to give you the key takeaways, here's Brian from the last edition of Business Connections Live. Interesting show today. Really looking forward to this one. It's all about goal mapping. That's what we're going to be discussing over the next 60 minutes or so. Joining me in the studio today is Brian Main. He's a speaker, trainer and author. He's been involved in this part of the industry for a long, long time. He's going out there. It's all about learning. That's what this is all about. And how do you step back for a moment and make absolutely certain that you're doing it in the most effective way? And that's what Brian's going to explain to us today.
Mind mapping really uses the technique to capture ideas. So with a mind map you can start the central point and gradually pad out the idea that you have, or you use a mind map to capture information you want to learn. Sometimes a mind map is only created in words. A goal map is entirely focused on achievement. 7 steps, and in those 7 steps it creates like a tree-like structure. And a mind map sometimes is created only with words, where a goal map is always created using words and pictures. I think for many people, when I explain the science of positive thinking, because there is a science to it, it's like a big aha moment for them. And then once they have the technique to continue with after I'm gone, because my aim is always self-sufficiency with the organisation, as they're using the technique with words and pictures, it's a form of brain training. So although they're setting goals for whatever they want to achieve, in the process they're using both their creative and their logical mind. I think most people have the mistaken idea that positive thinking is about walking through your life with your head in the clouds, pretending everything's wonderful even when it's not. And once I help them to understand that that's just another form of delusion, and I start to explain the science of how positive thinking works, that's when you see people start to turn around. What's interesting for me, and I spoke at the National Sales Conference at the end of last year in November, and there was 600 sales people there. And if I look back to when I ran my first workshops in 1995, is when I started running workshops on goal mapping, the level of resistance then as compared to the level of resistance now is unrecognisable. The challenge is for most people is they're not setting the goal in a way that's really effective. And if you don't know how to set the goal in a way that engages your whole brain, then your chances of achieving the goal are really, really reduced. So here's a goal map, always constructed using words for the conscious mind, imagery for the subconscious mind. So we have a main goal in the centre, then side goals. Either side of the main goal. At the top is the motivating reasons why. Then we have a timeline, so a start date, an achievement date. And then moving up the right hand side, we have the major actions we need to take, how we're going to do it. And then on the right hand side, who is going to help. And as you go through the 7 steps, it forms this tree-like structure. And these are the critical aspects of conscious achievement. So the first step, dream, what do you want to achieve? And so the second step is to use the logical mind to identify the priority goal. Then step 3, to map it out in words and pictures, so we're engaging both sides of the brain. And then why do we want it? Step 5, when. Without a date, it's not really a goal, it's a wish that maybe we'll get round to someday. And on that timeline, we can then start to place some of the major actions we will need to engage in. The how, that's going to move us up towards the achievement of the goal. And then finally, who. Whose help do we desire or require in taking the actions and moving towards the goal? Hi, I'm Brian Main. I'm creator of the goal mapping system that uses words and pictures to help activate both sides of your brain. It's a simple technique that helps you to think your best thoughts so that you trigger the chemical release and feel your best feelings. That influences you to take your best actions, and you invariably live your best life. You can access all the free materials, both paper-based and online, at my website, goalmapping.com. Try the system for yourself, see what you can achieve. Thank you.
Brian Main, a fantastic program. If you get a chance, do go to the website and have a look at it. The actual content that is on his website is really inspiring as well. I've got the book, been reading the book. If you, at the moment, perhaps maybe it's something that we could all do that. You know, we're in the moment at the moment, but we've got a plan for the future. And if we don't plan for the future, then, you know, then there's nothing to look forward to. And that goal setting is a fantastic way of doing it. And it is different from mind mapping. And he explains that in the entire program. By the way, if you're thinking that this is a great way of getting your message out there, well, why don't you get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live? We'd love to hear from you. You can always still drop us an email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com. If you want, you can always give us a call. Our lines are open still on 01784 256 777. You can follow our stream, albeit limited of consciousness, at BCL Business TV. But the best place to go for over 400 hours of business content is to go to the website at businessconnectionslive.com. Just go along to the website and check it out there. Hope you're enjoying today's program. It's great to have your company. We are live, and here we are in the middle of this crisis at the moment. We're trying to give you advice. We're trying to give you help. My guest on today's show is Lou Banks. She's the founder and CEO of Rising Vibe Limited, and we're talking about how the COVID virus is actually affecting. While that was on, actually, Linda Bazant, who is the co-founder of Business Connections Live, she dropped me a text and she said, if you find out, Lou, that one of your staff is diagnosed with COVID while they're furlonged, has she or have you got a plan for any practical help to give them? For instance, you know, dropping off essentials or anything like that. How are you helping your staff if they become affected?
Well, we did have one of our team, actually, she went into self-isolation because her son had symptoms, and then she has symptoms. They've not been formally diagnosed, as a lot of people aren't actually. Do you know what? The one question we use at Rising Vibe and with our clients all the time is, what do you need right now to help with this? What do you need right now? Now, sometimes the response might not be, business supportive, but in these times, I think all we can do is ask people what they need. Of course, if the response is something like, I need to keep my job, when actually financially you can't do that, I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about, based on that question, if people are, at home, isolated, not well, asking them what they need that's going to help them find some kind of relief during this, for me, is the best question you can ask. Otherwise, we're kind of second guessing what people might need. And what we tend to do is we give people what we need, because we make an assumption unconsciously people need the same stuff as us.
One of the topics that we were going to talk about is role models. I mean, you as an individual, how are you role modelling your leadership skills, what you're trying to do to your teams? Because now we're doing it remotely. We've got this technological barrier in the way, and also the remoteness of everything is in the way too. So how are you role modelling as a leader to the rest of the business?
I mean, if you'd asked me this question, 2-3 months ago, I would have answered it probably in a similar way, but with a lot more conviction, if that makes sense, because, I'm doing the best that I can do right now. And whether or not that's the most helpful or not, I don't know. But for me, we work remotely anyway. We are all based from home generally. So the whole remote working thing is not an issue for us, because as a team, we do that anyway, and we go to the client. What we do consistently, we show up every week and we always get together as a wider group. We always did that on a Monday afternoon without fail. And, if someone wasn't around, that's fine. If someone was doing something with the client, they wouldn't have to come in. And actually, a lot of that conversation would be just what's been going on, how you feeling, what's happening. A very informal check-in, which, generally speaking in business, is sometimes seen as a counterintuitive approach. You've got loads to do. But just that being more human, and the more you do that, people feel safer. And the sense of psychological safety in our team was, is and was, for the people that are not with us right now, huge. And part of that was because we just kept in touch without a doubt. And I'm always checking in with people. The other bit that is really important, and I'm trying my best to do that right now, is to be absolutely as transparent as possible, not only about what's going on and giving all the information, like over-communicating. I think I've over-communicated, but also being really transparent about where you're at and how you're feeling, because it doesn't matter what role you're in right now. Nobody is immune to feeling this intense uncertainty and low vibe emotion, which means trying to pretend, which happens a lot. We talk about fake positivity, the functioning fakeaholics. So unhelpful. You have to be honest about where you're at too. And I guess as a leader, be honest without getting hysterical and breaking down if you can help it, right? But right now there's probably a lot of that going on. To be honest, I mean, whether that is really going to be...
I mean, we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat, and that is the problem, isn't it? So
totally.
Nobody knows where we're going at the moment. We've got this destiny ahead of us. The sun will still rise tomorrow morning, but we don't know what that's going to bring, and that really is the issue. It is that complete uncertainty. What do you do when you recognise that somebody within your team is beginning to really suffer from this? Because we all keep it under wraps, don't we? We're all control freaks, I suppose. The more senior, the more of a leader you are within business, we control our emotions because we have to be seen to be the leaders within our organisations. But how do we, how do we recognise it? What do we do to the people that are out there? What are the signs that you've seen in the past for remote workers?
So let me just touch briefly on social pain, because I've referenced that a couple of times, and we focus on that at Rising Vibe all the time. So social pain, let me just tell you what it is, first of all, which then will probably help with the answer of that question. Okay. Social pain is when we feel a sense of isolation, rejected, judgment, exclusion, all of those kind of things will drive social pain. And social pain is experienced in exactly the same way as physical pain. So the same part of the brain lights up, the anterior cingulate, when we're in physical pain. So you break our leg, the anterior cingulate will light up. If we feel excluded or isolated, which right now is going on in abundance, the same part of the brain lights up. And depending how significant the relationship is to you, the longer it will light, the more intense the light will shine, will in the brain. So if you think about right now, the social pain being experienced across the world is extreme. Whether that's I'm working from home and I'm fearful of losing my job, getting laid off, being made redundant, whatever it might be, and I don't really know what's going on because no one's checking in with me. And I talked about checking in just a minute ago, and it sounds so straightforward. People don't do it. People don't have one-to-ones. Let's go back to normal world. People don't have one-to-ones.
No, they don't.
People don't have appraisals. People don't know where they stand. People that we work with are saying all the time, I just don't know if I'm doing a good job or not. That uncertainty is so uncomfortable for everybody. People would rather know where they stand, even if the news isn't great, than just not know. And when we don't know, the social pain is increased even more. Sorry, you're going to say something, Nancy?
Well, I was going to say about social. Are there simple steps that you can use? Is there a process? I mean, I think it's the process that you would use in normal day-to-day business life anyway. You were talking there about the one-to-one, the appraisals, talking to your employees. The trouble is that there are a lot of leaders who lack those skills within organisations. I mean, what's the old expression? Where do you find psychopaths? You find them in jail and leading large corporates, you know. So, but
Yeah,
so
I've
some
heard
of them
that.
don't have the social skills to actually be able to do this, and it's making it even more difficult for them. So they're under immense pressure because they can't, they don't have the social skills or the talent. Wrong word. The social skills to do what they need to do in what is now a very difficult situation with their employees.
So in my experience, I would say 99% of leaders who don't have those conversations are lacking confidence. It's nothing more than that. But to admit that when you are a senior leader is extremely uncomfortable. Takes a lot of the people I work with when I do my exec coaching into a place of shame and anxiety and fear. To admit that, to say out loud, actually, I don't know how to have a conversation. And I hear it used all the time. We're just going to have a chat, just going to have a conversation. It's not that straightforward for many people. So what we do at Rising Vibe, we have a number of very simple, they're very heavily based in psychology, the background, but you wouldn't know that because they're practical, they're simple frameworks to help people have a conversation, because it sounds so straightforward. It just does not happen. And our the backbone model of our brand, which is our diagnostic and our measurement tool as well, is a rising vibrational scale, which is very simple. It's a scale from 1 to 22 that just shares words associated with emotion that gives people a framework to talk about how they are really feeling, to move away from this fake positivity that we feel that we have to show up with, especially as a leader, and be able to talk about how they're really feeling in a disassociated way. So you can point to it and say, I'm around a number 21. You don't have to say, I feel anxious, for example. But the more often we show up with that with our clients, and a lot of our clients now use it as part of every one-to-one they have, the depth of conversation, the realness of the conversation changes over time because people start feeling safe enough to say what it is they're really feeling. Because people don't have those kind of conversations, and it's really scary for people. I don't mind doing it, but a lot of people hate it.
Now, you've actually got this on your website, haven't you? This
Yes.
there's a lovely graphic of it on the website, which is here. If you go to the Rising Vibe website, you can see this, and also you can download it as well, from what I understand as well. Is that correct? So that's the chart. So when you're looking at that, what should people be observing when they're actually looking at that particular graphic? Where do they start on it? Do they start at the bottom and work their way up, or do they start at the top and work their way down? What's the best way of approaching it?
Time with you, as an example.
Say that again. Oh yeah. Sorry. I was pressing
Yes.
buttons there just for a moment. Yes.
You're doing all the technical bit.
Yeah, right.
So if you just pick that back up on the screen again, you can see it, right?
Yep. Oh, right now, because this is all kind of working, I'm feeling euphoria. But there is. Let me just go down there. Worried, I would imagine, is where I'm sitting. Worried, doubt, and unsure. I'm below that line. Um,
Still fully in force and will always mean we're looking for problems because we're looking for threat all the time. So it is rare that we will stay in a high vibe. So the words above the line, the 1 to 7, a high vibe, the ones below a low vibe. It is rare we will stay in a high vibe place for a consistent period of time. In a day, you're going to go all over the place.
all right.
What we do is help people access what thoughts they're having that are driving those feelings, so that we can help them make a baby step shift in the perspective of their thinking so they can feel a bit better. So if you were to tell me what thoughts you're having right now that are driving that worry, doubt, unsure, what kind of things do you believe to be true about the current situation, for example? If you would just shoot from the hip and tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I mean, what I've realised, by the way, when we show the graph, we can't hear you, which is a bit of an issue. But
okay.
So that's why I've come off it. But I think there's a feeling of uncertainty. In fact, another question's come in for you, which is around that, and it says, from an emotional point of view, do you think we are overloading on TV bulletins about COVID, and should we limit ourselves to just maybe breakfast time and evening time news instead of watching it all the time? Because I suppose what's happening is that
100%.
Yeah,
100%. So the way that we think, we see something, we have a thought about it, and we don't think in facts. So we won't look at the stats for the diagnosis and the deaths right now. We won't be looking at the facts and going, how fascinating. Thousands and so many people have died. Full stop.
No, we won't
we
be.
think that, and then we go, and that means, and that means, and that means, and that means. We don't think in facts. We think in that way. We add on what if, how might happen, and it will never be helpful. By the way, it will always be unhelpful because we're in a constant state of self-preservation and looking for threat. Anyway, right now we are surrounded by threat. So when we look at stuff and we hear stuff on the news and social media that is just highlighting all the horror stories and the stats. By the way, we need to know stuff because we need to know the severity so that we take action. But we also need to hear some of the good news stuff too. And that isn't about being in denial. That's not fake positivity. That is also tell me, I need to know the situation, give me the facts, and then talk to me about what I need to do, stuff that's within my control, right? Stuff that's within my control. Because when things are outside of our control, which the whole coronavirus thing is completely outside of our control right now, all we can control is what we do and how we think about it. So stop showing me stuff to highlight the disaster, and also show me some stuff that are the good news stories, because it is so unhelpful and that is not going to help.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting you say that about the being out of control. A lot of people are saying the reason that we had this shortage of the toilet rolls was because it was something that was big. We could go in and we were in control of purchasing it, and that was our way of gaining some form of tangible control over an unseen enemy. Listen, I want you to hold your thoughts for a moment. I'm going to come back to you in a moment. What I'd like to do is, if you can walk us through the steps that we should be thinking in our mind's eye, so that we've got a tangible thing that we can take away from this. That'd be really helpful. If we'll do that in just a few moments' time, is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. My guest on today's show is Lou Banks, a fantastic, informative talk. Hope you're finding it interesting and useful. And if you are, for the first time, remote working from home at the moment, you're going in, you find that the isolation... I remember when I became self-employed 1,000 years ago in another lifetime, the thing that I missed the most was the corporate life. It was the walking down the corridors. It was the meeting your colleagues. It was being with them. And then working on your own initially can be very difficult. And there are a lot of people who are going through that at the moment. So if you're going through that and you're feeling the real strains from being on your own, then don't worry. That's not unusual. You're going to find that, and it will get better. You will get used to it. And maybe you may find yourself actually enjoying it in the end. All right, then. Now, just a few comments, just to give you a moment to absorb all of that. Let's go back to a previous program on Business Connections Live, where we were looking at how to, because we've now got all the opportunity and all the time in the world, how do you produce content for all the social media platforms? Everybody's talking COVID-19 out there at the moment, but what about the business? The reality of business is it still continues in some form or another. Nikki Creel came on the program, and what she did, she gave us some real insights into how to create content for all the different social media platforms, but to do it quickly.
Hello, I'm Nikki Creel. I'm a social media consultant, speaker, trainer and author. And I'm passionate about helping businesses to create content quickly, because I think at the moment that's something that people are struggling with. All you need to do is really have a strategy for it, know who your customers are, put a plan together, use the tools that are appropriate for your business that can save you tons and tons of time, schedule the content, and then spend your time doing the fun part, talking to people and engaging with your audience.
Very important, actually, to talk to your audience, engage with your audience, talk to your mates, talk to your friends, talk to clients, because they're going to be in the same boat as you are. You're watching Business Connections Live. It's great to have your company. We're live here on the Monday. This is one of our first of our programs from our new decamped studio, which we're probably going to be in for the next couple of months. My guest on today's show is Lou Banks. She's the founder and CEO at Rising Vibe Limited. Lou, I was just asking you if you could give us some tangible, it sounds like the end of the program, you're going to repeat it then anyway, but a tangible sequence of things that we can do to make certain that our well-being is going to be taken care of. What would you suggest?
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is this kind of process I'm going to talk to you about takes focus and commitment, because what we're trying to do is to challenge our patterns of thinking, which will be heightened to a very unhelpful focus right now because of what's going on. And to repeat a process like this is going to be key if you're going to change those neural pathways and actually feel a bit better. So none of this stuff that we do is a quick fix. You've got to keep showing up, like repeat, apply, repeat, apply. I just want to say that because that's really important. The first step, if I try and break this down, is you've got to be honest about how you're really feeling. There's a lot of people I'm speaking to at the moment putting on a brave face, whether that's people who are in the NHS front line or whether it's people who are, working, struggling, losing their job, putting on a brave face. Putting on a brave face is not going to help you feel better. You have to admit to yourself first how you're really feeling. Using the scale is really helpful for that. So as you said, you can download that from our website. So how am I really feeling? What is it that I'm thinking about right now that is driving those feelings?
Do you think people are honest with themselves when they have those internal conversations? Do they kind of lie? Everything will be fine,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. If I see another post about looking for the positives right now, I'm all about looking for opportunities and possibility, and I think they will come. But right now, asking someone to feel positive when they are steeped in anxiety and fear is so unhelpful. I always say, when you ask someone to calm down who's not calm, they don't just calm down. Asking someone to be positive when they are feeling wretched is going to actually make them feel worse. And some of this stuff that's out there about being positive is meaning that some of the people that are feeling really anxious are feeling worse about themselves because they then believe that people out there feeling positive. I feel calm because I am focusing right now on the opportunity and possibility that will come from this, but I'm not feeling remotely positive. So the first bit is, how am I really feeling? What am I telling myself that's driving those feelings? What am I telling myself? What evidence do I have? That what I'm thinking is going to happen is going to happen? Now, even though there's lots of data out there at the moment about coronavirus where people are dying and getting sick, that doesn't mean that it's definitely going to happen in the way that you believe it might happen in your life right now, because we are not there yet. We can't predict the future, but we tend to. What we do is we let our thoughts, based on what we hear and what we've experienced in the past, dictate how we feel in the present and the future. So it's a really powerful exercise, once you recognize what thoughts you're having, to really challenge them and say, what evidence have I got? What evidence have I really got that that's the case? And what might be a slight shift in perspective? What might be a slight shift in perspective that's going to help me feel better? So an example, when I think about what's just gone on in my team, how I feel a lot of shame. Then it's had to come to that. I feel a lot of responsibility, so I feel shame. I feel despair, I feel angry, I've got that stuff going on. And what am I telling myself if I'm in that place? I'm telling myself I could have done more. I could have done something before this, before we even got to, coronavirus, to have more money in the bank, that I've not dealt with it properly, that people that have left the business that I care about will hold a lot of resentment, etc., etc. Is that helping me feel?
Well, I was going to say, how
relief?
do you protect yourself? How do you protect you if you're going through that turmoil internally?
Well, and I guess that's just to give an example of the process here. That is why when I feel that way, they're the kind of things I'm telling myself. Are they going to help me feel relieved and better in the moment? No, they're not. So a slight different shift in perspective for me, and this is what I've been telling myself constantly, is I know I've done the best I can. I'm learning a lot, which will help me in the future. And I will keep checking in with these people so they know I do care. They are thought statements that I am replacing the ones I just said out loud to you with, which immediately made me feel a little bit better. But I have to keep showing up with that shift in my perspective regularly because it's not sticking yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Because we're doing that and we're talking to ourselves. We've been very honest with ourselves. But how do we control those underlying emotions that we all have? Because there's going to be people out there that are going to be talking to themselves and getting very, very angry, very, very frustrated. We're going to see those kind of red-blooded emotions coming through. How do we control those? Because there is this two sides, isn't it? There's this kind of rational, we'll get through it, everything, carry on, everything will be fine. But then we've got this, as you said, this anger that is taking place as well. How do we control that one? Because a lot of people can't control that anger. They can't control the frustrations of life. And it just bubbles up and bubbles up. It brews. It's like a kettle that's on the heat. And then finally it just explodes. How do we stop that? How do we control those emotions?
Well, I guess the first thing I want to say is we can't.
All right.
We can't.
That's the bad news then.
That's the bad news. We can't control anyone else. Wouldn't it be great if we could? We cannot make anyone feel anything. We can't make someone feel better. We can't make someone stop being angry. We can trigger reactions in people, sometimes on purpose, right? If we're that way inclined. All we can do is look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what could I do differently right now that means I am showing up in a more helpful way? There are some people out there, by the way, who even hearing me say that will just get angry with me because it sounds crazy and out of reach. So some people who are very self-aware that I know are doing this already. But what we can do with the people that are angry is meet them with compassion. We shouldn't tolerate it. And what I mean by that is it doesn't mean we go, oh, it's just because they're worried and afraid. They're not feeling great, which is why they're angry. People don't get angry when they feel good. But we should meet it with compassion and ask them what they need rather than meeting it in the same way, which is what I'm inclined to do, by the way, because I'm a fighter, or retreating from it. Meeting anger and resentment and blame with what do you need, what would help you right now, is all we can do. We can help other people help themselves. That's all we can do. And if we're managing ourselves, we are much more able and likely to be able to influence someone else to help themselves.
What other advice would you give? Because it's interesting. We've nearly talked for an hour, which is just the most bizarre thing. But what other things? I'm going to ask you to do a summary and the key takeaways in a few moments. But prior to that, what are the other techniques, the other things that we can do to actually help us through this time? And what can you as a company, as you as an organisation, what can you do to help business owners if they feel that they're being cast adrift, they're on their own, and they do need some help? What's available out there for them?
Well, I mean, what's come up for me now, I don't even know if I'm going to answer your question here, but there are so many things. We're talking at the minute at Rising Vibe about how do we right now, we in entirety find relief. And relief is a release from these really low vibe emotions of anxiety. That is going to be potentially very different for all of us. The process I just spoke to you about is one thing that can help all of us. Some people don't want to do that. They don't buy into it. They don't believe in it. And that's absolutely, it's a choice. But without a doubt, when you show up with that kind of thing, it will help. Things like walking your dog, getting that hour outside like we're allowed to do right now, having a bath, doing a Zoom call with people that you care about, that actually will help a lot of people, all that basic stuff. But when you feel wretched, sometimes you haven't even got the energy or the inclination to do that. So I'm going to go back to it. I am repeating myself here. But the most powerful thing we can do right now is keep showing up and being open and accessible to people that matter, whether they're in our business, whether they're in our family, and asking them, what do you really need right now to feel better? Not to feel positive, but to feel better. And some people can't answer it. But let me tell you, if you keep asking that question, they will be able to access that, because we've all got the answers for ourselves. Telling someone, we just need to go for a walk in the fresh air, not helpful. You just need to do yoga in the morning. For some people helpful, some people not helpful. So it is about, how do we help other people help themselves, which when we feel very low vibe, we become more inward focused, and all we're caring about is us. We're not thinking about other people. So this is the challenge. Step 1, notice how you are showing up. Step 2, ask other people that matter to you what they need to feel better right now. And you might be able to support that, you might not. But what that does is bring into the awareness that only we have control around how we feel. We can't do anything else about the external world right now. We can only control what we are doing and what we're thinking.
Do you know, it's been a real insight. I hope it's been helpful. Since this has started, since COVID-19 has hit the streets, since we've started to see, I mean, and it's getting worse. I mean, where are you? You're in the West Country, aren't you?
I'm in Southampton, actually, down in the South Coast.
Down on the South Coast. So, and of course, in London, where we are, it's looking horrific, and we're 2 or 3 weeks out from that. So, have you had people phoning you up? Have you had people contacting you and saying, we need your help? And if they have phoned you, what kind of questions are they asking? Because I think that would be interesting for other business owners to hear if their contemporaries are actually asking the same questions that they're thinking. What kind of things have you been asked for?
Well, we've I would say the back end of last week is when we started having some of these conversations with people who are, the question they're asking is, what can we do in this interim period to help people feel okay? I mean, in a nutshell, there's a variety of different versions of that, but how do we keep people engaged, keep people motivated, keep people feeling safe, keep people mentally well, look after their well-being in this period of limbo, in this period of uncertainty? I've had a couple of clients actually have contacted me, and they've in the airlines, for example, cabin crew. Mm-hmm. What do we do with cabin crew right now? I've got some clients in the pharmaceutical industry who, I mean, they've not been able to go, the sales force haven't been able to go into hospitals for a while. So how do we keep our sales force feeling engaged and motivated in this down period? Another client has got a load of apprentices that are about to join and now can't join. How do we keep them engaged remotely before they join us when this all kind of dies down? So it's about, how do we keep people on board? The people that we can financially keep in the business right now, how do we keep them on board? How do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them feeling better in this period of uncertainty? Is the questions we're getting asked.
Right, now, another question for you. Would you be comfortable sharing your glass of wine over Zoom? Of course, that story is a big story at the moment. I mean, that seems to be a way to actually help people, is to bring some of the normality back into life, isn't it? So that we do some of the things that we normally do. Instead of going out to see friends, we Zoom in with them, or we Skype in with them, and we do the normal things in life as near as normal as we can do. Do you recommend that as a good way of moving forward?
Absolutely, as long as it's not enforced, just so. For example, my mum and dad are in isolation; they're in their 70s, and my mum had a bit of a meltdown this weekend. My dad has got diabetes; he's got to have an operation this week. Oh my God. And what we did, she hates technology, but I encouraged her to be open to it, and I got her signed up on Zoom. And last night, my husband and I, my daughter, my son, zoomed in from university. My brother and his family, and my mum and dad, we got on a Zoom for an hour, and you could tell she felt better, because what we'd normally do, I'd normally pop in for a cup of tea. Or my brother always goes there on a Thursday night when he picks up his son from his ex-wife, and that's not been happening for her. So just us all being on, I mean, it was carnage, by the way, you could only see their foreheads and the side of their faces, and people were shouting over each other. But you know what? I mean, that's just normal life too, in terms of in families, and that is so important. And I know there's the app that's House Party that's out there now, where people can play games, right. And absolutely, I've got a few people that I know in my team have had House Party hangovers. It's
well, I must admit, yesterday My wife and myself, we sat and we had a bottle of wine with some friends who were in Oxfordshire, and we did it all over Zoom yesterday, and it was a lovely hour to relax. And I suppose that's what's important, isn't it? We've got to maintain some of the things that are normal out there. By the way, thank you very much to all the people who are going online and leaving comments and sharing this on LinkedIn as well. Do share it with your friends, because I think some of the information that Lou has given us today, it's the kind of stuff that we probably all in our mind's eye, we all think we know, but until somebody actually sort of says, if you don't do this, there will be consequences, there will be effects. And by doing this, you will feel better with yourself, you'll feel better, hopefully, within the situation. It isn't going to make the situation go away, though, but at least we're back in control a little bit more of it, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. We definitely are.
Now, I'm just looking down, because we always ask our guests to put together a briefing document, and here's Lou's, and
which we've probably not talked about any of that.
We haven't. Well, I'm just going down there. I was just looking at it here. So, the definition of social pain and how it manifests in business we've covered: low resilience, poor communication. Anything that we haven't covered, do stop me. Tick boxing, political correctness. Often they say that's gone bad. What should we be doing about that?
Right. Well, I think so. I've never really experienced it myself, because I don't do it as a rule. But what I mean by that, and this has shown up for me just this last couple of weeks, I've had to follow HR process in a way that, in my own business, I've never had to do before. I've done it in the corporate world when I worked there, but I've not had to do it in my own business. I am, which you probably get from me, Steve, someone who likes to sharpen up a conversation.
Yeah.
Let's just say what we mean. Let's be transparent. I have not been able to do that at times throughout this last 2 weeks, because I've had to follow process. Because my fear around getting this wrong from a law perspective has been horrific. What that has done has caused me much more social pain than I thought was possible, because I've not able to I felt like I was in a straitjacket and constrained, that I couldn't just say what I wanted to say. I had to follow some protocol. And if you go back to pre this situation, there are a lot of people out there who feel the same. The political correctness around performance management, around diversity, inclusion and gender, people not actually having conversations because they're afraid of the implications if they get it wrong. And I, for the first time in my career, and I'm 50 next year, experienced it in the last 2 weeks, where I felt so panic stricken about getting it wrong, but wanting to care about the people at the same time, but not being able to show up as me. And that's kind of what we mean by that.
All right, then. So that's political correctness. Resistance to change, we've covered. Silo working. A lot of people work in silos when they're in the office anyway. We see that right across all communities, don't we? Somebody that works in one particular silo, they know nothing about another business silo. So silo working, we can get round that. And disconnected leadership. Do you know what? We have covered everything on your list.
Very good. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm impressed.
Me too. I can't get over it. Listen, it's been a real insight. We always ask our guests at the end to give a summary of what we've talked about through the course of the hour. I'd like to invite you to do that if you can. Say who you are, where you're from, and give us the key things that we need to remember in this process. So really, it's a summary of the entire programme. The airwaves, Lou, are all yours.
Okay, so I'm Lou. I am Lou Banks, founder of Rising Vibe. We're culture consultants, working with our clients from big corporates to small, medium enterprises to help them build and embed the culture that they want. Right now, things feel very different. And if I was going to summarise the conversation we've had, I would say that we have absolutely no control. We never do, by the way, of the external world. And right now, that feels even more scary and intense than ever before. The only thing we can control is our internal world, which is what we're thinking and how we're feeling. With some focus and repetition and application of challenging the thought patterns that are not helping us, we can feel better. This is not about feeling positive. This is about feeling better and finding relief right now in this period. And if you want any help with that, you can download our scale from the website, drop us an email, and we can talk to you about how you can use that. It's a simple tool and it's very powerful. If you keep showing up with it, it's not a quick fix. And the other bit that I've talked about a lot that I guess I wasn't expecting to talk about so much was the only thing we can control is us. We can challenge and support other people to help themselves, but we can't make other people feel better or do anything differently, but we can encourage them. And if we are more able to get more control around our own emotional state, we are much more able and likely to influence others in a more helpful way. I think that will do.
Yeah, never leave out the people, because the people are very important as well.
The people are more important than the people, for sure.
Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Just give us the web address again. It is
www.rising-vibe.com, and there is a Rising Vibrational Scale page there, and we are just launching our COVID-19 support page, which will put some online information in there around how we can support you in this interim period.
all right. Now, the reason I've asked you to do that now, because obviously when I go to the web page, they can't hear you anymore. But here is the web page there. Hello, we're Rising Vibe, we're culture consultants using emotion to drive cultural change. If you want to get that graph that we were showing you earlier on, then all you got to do is just pop along. You'll see it here, the Rising Vibrational Scale. Just click on that, and that'll take you to the appropriate page, and you can see and you can use that there. But you can download this as an infographic as well. Do you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic fun and very insightful. It made me feel better. I hope it's made other people feel just a little bit better. What do you think the future holds then? Do you think it's 3, 4, 5 months, a year, 18 months? I mean, God forbid.
I guess in my head, and I've got no evidence on this whatsoever, but in my head, in my gut, I think post summer we will start getting into building more resilience and moving towards recovery, whatever that looks like. Recovery at an individual level, at a family level, at a business level. I don't think that's going to start until September time. So how can we find relief and help ourselves feel a little bit better so that we manage in just this interim period? But ultimately, I think it's brought more perspective already. Certainly for me, I think the opportunities and possibilities, like we were talking about, Steve, before we came on here live. Bricks and mortar. I think a lot of people will be thinking, why am I paying all this money for this stuff when actually
absolutely
we've worked really well from home?
Yeah, and there are landlords out there that are thinking. I mean, it just goes back to that social aspect of working in a corporate environment. But there are a number of corporates now that are sending their employees home. So why do you need these great big buildings and these great big offices when everybody is just as effective at home? I suppose there's always been that level of, dare I say this, mistrust that when somebody's at home, get up late, they don't really do the work, they log on, but they're not really in the moment within the office. And I suppose that's a fear that some employers have. I'm afraid they're just going to have to get over it, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think how you can really help with that, Steve, actually, is if you can help people be honest about how they're feeling. There will be people out there, right, who might take advantage, but I think they are so in the minority. I think one of the main reasons why people maybe are not being productive from home or not doing what you would like them to do is because you've not been explicit enough with them around expectations and not made sure that any gap in capability to deliver on those expectations is getting the support that it needs. That is usually the case, rather than people just taking advantage and can't be bothered, actually. So their responsibility on the leader, the organisation, to be really explicitly clear around what they expect of someone. And that might mean you need to do day by day for some people, right? Because some people need that. That often doesn't happen. And then what we do is blame people for not doing a good enough job or being lazy.
Do you know what? It's been a pleasure. Shall we get the hell out of here? I think it's time for lunch, isn't it? It's just that David Williams has come on, digital onboarding for customers. He said, leaders, keep showing up and being accessible to your teams. Fantastic advice from Lou Banks on Business Connections Live. Well done. Great show. Listen, it's been a great show. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it too.
Steve.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been, and I look forward to seeing you in the studio, the big one where all the cameras are in the near future. And do stay well. Lou, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Steve.
Lou Banks there, and I hope you've enjoyed today's program. We will be back at irregular intervals because Linda Bazant will be joining me on the program as there are different announcements and things like that taking place. She'll be coming on the program and she'll be sorting things out and trying to explain some of the whys and wherefores when it comes to what's taking place and what is happening and how it implements or impacts you as a business. But from me, Steve Hyland, thank you very much for joining me today. Don't forget, you can email us if you wish. You can Give us a call on 01784256777, but better still, go to the website and check out everything that's taking place there as well, because all the programmes are there. But until we do it all again, you take care, look after yourselves, keep well, and thank you very much for watching. Have a great week and a safe week. Bye for now.
Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel.